Hello and welcome to the Varietal Show. If you've never been here before, well, my name is Rory, and you're watching Varietal Literature's YouTube channel. And thank you for watching that, by the way. Even if you don't stick around, thanks for giving it a chance. If you're watching us live, well, what we're going to do here is play a tabletop RPG and use it to write a story. And I'm going to say more about that in a minute. But if you're watching it live, you can join the little crop of potatoes growing in the live chat, where I already see GS Witchery, Zombie Wolf, Jumstore, Tammy Morelli, and I think I already said Witchery, but if I didn't, Witchery, who are already in there. They are going to come and help me write this story, and if you want to join in and help interpret prompts or give your own ideas for the story, go right ahead. I will be happy to have you there. If you're not watching this live, though, down in the description below, there will be timestamps, which allow you to jump ahead to the description of the game and its rules, which is going to occupy a little bit of time today. I'll explain what we're doing in a minute. Or if you just want to know the story we come up with, or world, or whatever it is we end up doing today, you can also skip ahead using those timestamps down in the description below. Other than that, if you just want to hang out, you can hang out. You have my permission. Not that you need it. We're talking about the weather. I should mention it is warm here, and one of the downsides of that is I'm not good in the heat. I get sweaty and distracted. So we'll see how I do tonight, but also my computer, which is a 12-year-old laptop at this point, because my good one broke, also doesn't love the heat. It's cooler than it was, but I don't want to stress it out too much. So as a result, there is a chance I may have to just sort of cut this stream short, but that's okay, because I suspect this is going to be a two-parter, at least, which I will talk about right now. This part of the show is called litgames. It stands for literature games, and it is the show. Oh, I just realized I don't have Cthulhu here. Cthulhu, you do two things. You glower over my left shoulder, and you block my other light from reflecting in the TV. Anyhow, there we go. Back on track. This is litgames, and litgames is a sort of catch-all for all the solo tabletop RPGs, lyric games, things like that I play. What we're going to play tonight is called Lunar Echoes. Zombie Wolf says, cutting it short. Rory, you need to earn your paycheck. Do you think if I was like, guys, I'll go a minute per dollar, whether I would actually get money? I'm never going to do this, but if I would actually get money that would keep me on here for longer. I mean, I guess that's kind of what subathons are, if any of you are into like Twitch, and they do work. But I don't do things that work. I do things that I like. Jumpstore says no one puts Cthulhu in a corner. Hilarious. That's hilarious. Okay. See, I'm already getting distracted. So this is called Lunar Echoes. There is some complicated description coming at you, not about mechanics, about the origins of this. So stick with me for a second. Then I will explain this. This is what is called hack of a tabletop RPG called Wanderhome. Now, Wanderhome is one I've wanted to play, but I've never played before, partially because it is so loose in its structure, and it really does, a lot of what makes it special is based around being at a table with people. But I feel like I can make this one work, and I'm going to explain how I'm going to do it. I also just like the setting for this. I wanted to do more with Solarpunk in general for my own selfish writing needs. I want to sort of play around in that genre more, see if I have stories to add to Solarpunk outside of the stream, like actual written and edited stuff. So this is a chance for me to try it. It is based on a book which I had not heard of before today, but I now have on my Kobo. I had to take it out from the library using Overdrive, but I do have it. I didn't get a chance to read more than the intro, but the book is called A Psalm for the Wild Built, and it comes from Becky, what was her name? Becky Chambers. That people are answering seriously about the money. I guess the way that I look at money is if a person feels like I've done something to earn it, I want them to give it like they would a friend, you know, who maybe needed some money or something. I don't want to like bribe and coerce people into giving me cash, which is why I probably don't get cash. But I just don't like it. Anyways, are there going to be animal sounds tonight? Tammy says, probably. Anyways, Lunar Echoes is based on a novella called Psalms for the Wild Built, a Psalm for the Wild Built, which is about a world that I'm going to read in the intro description of Lunar Echoes. So, to summarize, this game is a hack of another system called Wanderhome, which is about little animals wandering home in a sort of pastoral life. And it is recasting that world into a pre-built world of a novella called A Psalm for the Wild Built. Now, between those two things, I think they've created something distinct and unique and interesting to me. Witchery says, I own Wanderhome. This crowd would probably like it, but yeah, I think it's meant to be played more in real life than online. Yes, I agree. And I don't know why I think it will work with Solarpunk, but I do. More than the other. I think part of it is that I think part of it is that the what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry, this is the heat. Nope, it's gone. If anyone can remind me, I can get back. Okay, let's stay on track then. It does recommend, Witchery is making, indications that I may have been sent money. If that is the case, that is very kind, but I certainly wasn't trying to, like, carouse money out of people. The main thing I end up using the coffee money for, frankly, is buying more tabletop RPGs for the streams, which is probably not a good thing. Yeah, I know. Witchery says Kofi. Zombie Will says this Rory is a buffering. Unfortunately, I can't check my Kofi right now. Or at least it would take me a minute. So I'm going to finish this thought. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Panga Moon. Okay, so the Panga Moon, I'm just going to read the text. Otherwise, I'm going to just keep getting distracted. So it says, many unrecorded centuries ago, people were on the moon world of Panga, and they developed a society quite similar to our own. We know almost nothing about the political and economic systems of this pre-transition society. What we do know is that at least some of the people followed a polytheistic belief system incorporating 6 deities, which are going to matter here, because you, chat, are going to have your own character. This feels like this is on an angle. I think it is. But we'll talk about those gods and how they relate to your character in a minute. So there are 6 gods. There's what they call parent gods, which is god of the cycle, god of the inanimate, god of the threads, which isn't going to mean anything right now. And then there are 3 child gods, god of mysteries, god of constructs, and god of the small comforts. Jumpstart says we're very good at distracting you. Yes, you are. We will return to the gods of Panga in a second. Yes. Good job, book. Keep me on track. We also know that the pre-transition pangans had a factory age, which was driven by the use of... This is important, because this is the premise of the novella. Was driven by the use of robots to produce goods. At some point, the population of robots became sentient and decided they no longer wanted to live in servitude to the people of Penga. To their credit, the people of Penga didn't oppose the change, at least not on a large scale. And on the whole, they accepted the robots' decision and made no effort to prevent them from leaving. In fact, they went out of their way to create a space for the robots where they would never have to see another human again if they didn't want to. A dream we all dream. The Pangans divided the moon in half. One half would be the realm of the organic people and their built cities and villages and settlements. The other half would be given back to nature, to the wild, and a place for the robots to live without Pangan intrusion. The Pangans agreed to never venture into the wild, never to look for or attempt to make contact with the robots unless the robots initiated contact. The social shift in the division of the moon became known as the transition. Okay. Here it goes. Zombie Wolf says, my own character. Well, collectively, your own character. You guys, I have built a character. I'm going to tell you about my character in a minute, so you can see how character building works in this game. And I'm going to tell you this right now. There's a very good chance that the only thing we're going to really get done today is build your character that's going to accompany me. It's going to be your sit-in for you as a chat as we go on our journey. And build our hometown, which I'll talk about in a moment. So my main I don't normally do this. This is really common for like tabletop RPG streamers, but I normally don't really do like setup streams. I just sort of skimmy over them. But I kind of want this to work. I kind of, like I said, I'm interested in writing in the Solarpunk space. I don't know that I'm very good at it. And I'd like to be better. And I think that there is enough yarn here to knit a larger sweater. What a terrible analogy. So I'm hoping that we get along with this well enough that you folks will be fine with me playing it kind of the way that we do with the floating bookshop, which is coming back to it now and then and continuing the story. Yeah, Jumpstar. When I was in my 20s, I became obsessed with the idea of a thing called an Earthship. Witchery says, Roy, I'm happy to watch as many of any kind of streams as you want to do. Well, that is so kind of you to say. But I do hope that this one is entertaining for folks because I do find that interesting. Don't worry, I'm not saying we're going to do like 6 straight weeks of this. I'm saying like every couple of months we'll come back to it. Witchery says, I like you and I like the chat and I like the vibe. Well, I like you as well. At least what I know of you from small bits of text, I guess. We don't really know each other, do we? Jumpstore says probably a pipe dream. Talking about living off the land and stuff like that. Nah. Of course it's not a pipe dream. My one complaint about this very beautifully put together document, by the way, is the contrast is just about 6 shades too similar between the text and the background. It's very hard to read at times. Okay. I won't say too much on more of the backstory, partially because the book, A Psalm for the Wild Built, is about some stuff that reading the backstory here spoils. Witchery says we can be parasocial. Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm a streamer at this point, right? Parasocial is the name of the game. Okay. I don't think I need to say more about it. It's in that way. In this way, I'm going to move more into the mechanics of the game. So the way that I'm going to do that, a lot of this is discussion on like how to play together with people. So I'm going to skip over it. And it does a lot of that, like, by the way, the art in this book is very pretty. It does a lot of that sort of thing where it gives you like 16 questions to try and like help you focus in on the story and stuff. I don't feel like we need to do too much of that right now. But here's how I'm going to do introduce us to the concept of this game. I'm going to tell you by showing you my playbook about my character Rune. Rune is going to be my character basically in this playthrough of Lunar Echoes. I've already written some stuff to sort of introduce him, so I will read you that as well. And when I get to the end of that, then we're going to decide who your character is, chat. And in doing so, we'll show you how the character is put together, which is actually quite fun. Normally I don't do character building too much on stream, but I think this is a fun thing. And then we're going to do a little bit of world building on our hometown. And if we get to the point where we're departing on our journey by the end of this stream, that's great. That's kind of where I want to hit. So hopefully everyone's on board with that. If not, I have other streams you may enjoy more. Okay, so first and foremost, my Rune, who is a he, him, is a disciple of Chal. Now, what the hell does that mean, Rory? What that means, let me just double check something. Page 70, okay. Is like an archetype. So, Chal is one of the gods. He's the god of constructs. I'm going to have to zoom out a bit here. I realize the text is too small for you to read, but I'm going to read you the little bit. It says here, a disciple of Chal, like Rune is an ever-curious, wondering at the beauty of complexity, understanding that there are always simple ways to make, do, and mend. There is much to marvel at in technology, but we take care to stay within the bound of nature's aids. I am alive. My care for the world is inquisitive, crafting, and mending. Okay. Zombie Wolf says, Rory, politely telling people you don't have to be here. I think I'm more just reminding people that, you know, if I don't do something you don't like, please don't just unfollow me. Because that's always the risk. Some people are just are like, well, he fell off, and then they leave. Okay, so it gives you a few vocations. So you choose a name, you choose a pronoun. So the first thing that you should probably telling that you guys in chat should be thinking about is, what do you want to name your character? And I do kind of want chat to come to some sort of consensus about what they like. Trying a slightly different thing that I feel is more in line with, you know, the Solarpunk ethos. But I will eventually just have to pick one if we can't. So choose a vocation. For a disciple of Chal, the god of constructs, you could be an artisan, a salvager, a crafter, monk, techie. Monks and tea monks are a thing in this world. A mechanic and a beekeeper. Witchery says they arrange their Fridays around the stream. Wow. That is highly complimentary. I hope I earn that effort. Okay, so I chose a mechanic, and there's a very specific reason why I chose that. I know this text is too small. It's not really meant to be able to be read because it's mostly for me. GS says, we each have our own character. No, chat collectively will be represented by one character. As much as I would love for all of you to have a character, between the lag on the stream and how long it takes to introduce characters in it, story naturally, this would be 7 weeks of me just doing introductions. Sorry if people misunderstood that. Yeah, you don't each get your own. Okay, so inheriting, once you pick your vocation, it says choose 2 ways you've studied the world around you and 2 ways you're too afraid or too shy to try. And then it gives you a list of stuff. Now, you don't have to use the list of stuff, but we're going to stick with the list of stuff. I'm not going to read this block of text to you. But I am going to read you the stuff I picked. So the 2 things that my mechanic Rune, Disciple of Chal, is good at is has done to explore the world, however they said that, is they inherited a treasured relic from the pre-transition era, which in my case is a motorbike. And number 2 is that they are good at salvaging the ruins, so factory ruins in this world, to find forgotten technology, which fits very well with sort of where you'll see where I go with the character. The 2 things Rune is not good at, is afraid or too shy to do. Witchery says, Lamau, imagine Rory managing all of us. Somebody would be neglected, and they would be better about it. And rightfully so. If I promised everyone a character, and then I just only, like, never did anything they asked. So he's afraid or too shy or bad at, in some way, meditating for weeks until sudden revelations come to him, which was one of the options. He is also not so good at collaborating with a fellow miraculous disciple, who is my unrequited love, which I will come back to that point in a minute, because as it's written is a little bit confusing, but it comes out in the text what I mean by that. And then he gives you some descriptive stuff. 3 to 4 you use to describe your look here. Again, I'm not going to read them all. I'll read you the ones I picked. My character has wild hair, a bright smile for new ideas, honest eyes, and a knitted sweater 2 sizes too big. It then gives you a list of techniques you are skilled at, and asks you to pick 2 that you're skilled at and 1 that you may never master, that you're always a bit bad at. Twitchery says, Chaos Stream, we all share a Google Doc to play at the same time. I mean, if I knew it was just my chat in that Google Doc, maybe. That's a hard maybe, though. But the real problem is there's lurkers, and there would inevitably be somebody who would put some bigoted or troll nonsense on it. Can't do that. So the skills I'm good at is divining functions of ancient objects. Not me, Rune. And I have a portable repairing. I'm good at repairing on the go with what's called a wagon, which is an in-world idea. Basically a shop, I guess you could think of it. And a comprehensive toolbox. So he's a mechanic who has a lot of tools with him and is good at repairing stuff on the go. He wears a sweater 2 sizes too big. He has wild hair, bright smile for new ideas. Then it asks you to pick 2 items that you have, 1 that you carry with you and 1 you're fearful of misplacing, which I also carry with me. The one that I carry with me is also from the list there. It's my mother's multi-tool, who is also crafty. And the item that I keep with me at all times is a little small welder, obviously for repair. But I also thought it could work as a little torchlight if I needed to. And then it gives you a list of some things you can always do, which is a way to help a person decide on an RP action. And the ones that I picked was Rune will always give a hug, or say, I made this for you, and in that case, get a PEB if the person accepts their gift. PEBs. I will say the thing I understand the least is the PEBs in this game. The shortest version I can give you, I'm not going to go too much into it right now, because I don't think we're going to get to anything where it matters today. But PEBs are basically a kind of currency, but not an economic currency. They're more like a reflection of the fact that you did someone a good favor, and you can then use it in the future to sort of indicate that you've done something good for someone, to help encourage someone to help you do something. That was my understanding of it. Witchery says the lurkers, yes, but also us. Okay. So first and foremost, so there are 6 gods and 6 disciples you can be. GS says, I love the word PEB, sounds like dog kibble. That's a good observation. I think it's a reference to pebbles. It seems like Jumpstore said Astralis as the name. I may be saying that wrong. And Zombie Wolf says Astraeus. Are those two versions of the same name, or are they different names? Zombie Wolf says Astraeus means starry and was an astrological Greek deity. I don't know if I know that one. Are people getting buffering? My connection says it's good, so it might be on YouTube's end. I hope that's not the case, because it does tell me my quality here. I can double check how things are looking on the YouTube side of things. Yeah, it says my YouTube is doing well. Hopefully it's nothing too terrible. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do, chat. I am going to read you 5 of the 6 archetypes, because I don't want both of them to be Chal, who is the god of constructs, which Rune already is. And then we have the terrible task of deciding on one of these for the character. Okay, I say terrible because I don't know how we're going to decide. But let's find out. Okay. So I'm going to go through this quickly and briefly first, so you just know what your options are. And then I'm going to circle back and look at the chat, see how people feel about these gods. Disciple of Bosch is a god of the cycle. You know a little bit about everything and find all of it interesting. You watch and listen, speak the language of life and death, and see the patterns of the world. You are alive. Your care is observant, curious, and thoughtful. And just to give you an idea, some of the vocations you can take there is farmer, ecologist, monk. What a word I just made up there. Doctor, hunter, wild guard, and council member. Option 2, disciple of Grylom, or however you would say this, god of the inanimate. The raw earth is your playground. Its materials are toys. You build and create with an analytical mind to find solutions and construct communities. You are alive. Your care is scientific, meticulous, and innovative. And some of the vocations you can take there is a builder, a city planner, a wild park ranger, a water engineer, an astrophysicist, and a non-living resource recycler. Option 3. The Disciple of Trakili, God of the Threads, which is a great title. My mother does a lot of sewing. I think I'm just going to call her Trakili, the God of the Threads now. Minutia comprises all things, sewing together the living and non-living, connecting the human and more than human. These particles seem invisible to the naked eye, but are part of the world's greater pattern. You are alive, your care is exact, practical, and intuitive. Some vocations you can take is a seamstress monk, which I imagine is a reference to like making things like a seamstress, a theoretical physicist or chemist, a yoga teacher, what a jump, a gourmet cook, professor, or fashion designer. Carrying on. I think this is number 4. Disciple of Samaphar, God of the Mysteries. There is always something worth learning, knowing, and teaching to others so that wisdom lives longer than we could ever hope to. You are alive. Your care is studious, thoughtful, and deliberate. Your vocations available to you are a science monk, a librarian, teacher, artist, traveling healer, and philosopher. Witchery says, is sitting here with her sewing. I think I've mentioned this before, but I did a lot of sewing in my youth. So I do actually know quite a bit about sewing at a reasonably high level. I don't think I could tailor a suit, but I have made like boned multi-layer dresses for people. I wouldn't say I love it though. I kind of did it because I wanted to, and then I helped with some gifts, and then I don't know that I get a ton of joy out of it. But that might make Witchery the God of Threads. And I think the next one's Chal, yeah, which I've taken. The fifth option is the disciple of Alale, god of small comforts. Now, if I had to guess, this was the one that I was like, I kind of feel like the chat might like this one the most, but we'll see. We'll see what people say. You know that joy is vital to our lives. Calming teas, tasty jams, and good conversation are your tools of trade. You know life can be hard, and you aim to lessen that burden for others. You are alive. Your care is comfort, tangible and joyful. Choose a vocation. Vocations include a tea monk, which I'm sure has some interest to perhaps, I won't name names, somebody in the chat. A garden monk, a painter, a game maker, jammer or pickler. Jammer as in like, not like jamming out, like making jams. Or a caretaker of some sort. So, let me briefly go back through those. Then chat. I'm going to see what you say. I'm going to read the bit of text that I have for Rune, so you know where your character has to fit in the narrative of the story. And then we're going to decide what god your character is going with. Again, disciple of Alale, god of small comforts, the tea and crumpets god, I guess we could call it. Disciple of Samaphar, god of the mysteries, who is more about deliberate, like, scientific sort of research and so on, includes being a healer and such. The disciple of Trakili, the god of threads, which really is the god of crafting, whether that is cooking or, sewing or even apparently theoretical physics and stuff, the sort of arts and crafts side of things. The disciple of Grolome, so is the god of the inanimate, deals with geology and city planning and things that don't change too much. And of course, Bosch, god of the cycle, where you know a little bit about everything. Witchery is making doll clothes. I used to have 1/6 scale, like G.I. Joe style dolls, and then I would sew clothes for them, and make head sculpts for them to be, things I saw in movies and games that I wanted. At one point, I made a Max Payne doll. I don't know where it is, but so there is definitely a few people. There's a few different votes going on. Okay, now that we have a sense of the range of games, and I'm glad that people are excited about some of them. I mean, the worst thing you can get is no answer on this. I'm going to read you just a brief couple of paragraphs where I'm introducing Rune, and your character is going to be his travel partner. I'm telling you that right now. So think about what you think fits best with Rune. Rune was 14 when he recognized the odd magnetic nature of Panga's crust meant that a pair of contactless stabilizers from the local Rune factory could be repurposed into the propulsion of a hoverbike. It took another year and one broken arm before Rune could make the whole concept stable enough to ride. He built the old stabilizers onto an ancient combustion and rubber style bike that his grandfather had given him. He didn't like how the rubber tires battered the vines and underbrush of the border wilds, which was what set him onto this idea in the first place. It was a charming side effect that the reduced friction of the stabilizers, as opposed to rubber wheels, made it the fastest means of travel in his village. The power consumption was high, though. It could manage well enough on solar for short trips on sunny days, but he had to distill a high-proof vine liquor to run the old combustion on longer trips. He had heard of reactor cells that may solve his power problem, a remnant of the old world, from Eloise, but had yet to find any in his local ruins. Eloise was a lady Rune. Was a lady Rune had never met, and yet he sketched his imagination of her face every night for a year. Eloise was from a colony on the far side of the Panga Moon. Rune had gotten to know her through an old two-way radio he'd repaired. They talked for months, sharing their love of technology, but lost this thin thread of communication when the village antenna was melted by a lightning strike during the days of storms. Rune, now 18, had convinced his mother that he knew where to find another great antenna. He wanted to take his high-speed bike into the woods and bring it home. In truth, Rune only assumed such an antenna might be out there, somewhere. Rune had eyes, instead, for Eloise. He needed only permission for the journey, much longer than he had promised his mum it would be. She agreed to let him go on this journey for the antenna, only if he wouldn't go alone. And Rune knew exactly who to bring. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Witchery. Yeah, that's very sad. Zombie Will says, we always need a healer. Okay. So now you have a sense of the shape of the story. Rune's a bit wilder, bit curious, a little bit morally gray, willing to lie to his mother, and lovelorn. He wants to travel across the Panga Moon to try and find his love, who he knew through a two-way radio called Eloise. So, does that change our view at all on who should be riding on the bike with him? So far, we had, I believe, 2 votes for the God of Small Comforts. At least 1 vote for the Traveling Healer. I forget which god it was. I think we had 1 vote for another. Oh, Samaphar. Samaphar is the Traveling Healer. And Jumstor mentioned Trakili, the Gourmet Cook. I mean, I do like cooks. So. Ugh. Jumpstore says, maybe a healer. I don't think a cook would be of much use to Rune. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I think it's, I don't think it's the kind of game where, like, we need to worry stats. Right? Like, there's no stats. We could say there's healers in a village or whatever else if we don't want to do that. It depends on who we feel like we can embody and who we can be. A cool feature, which you're not really going to get the sense of or be able to be a part of, really, a cool feature of Wanderhome in general, and this hack consequently, is when you encounter NPCs, you roll their features, which hopefully we'll see at some point, but anyone can play them. They sort of abandon their character briefly and play that NPC, which is a cool concept. But there's not really any way to do that in this setting. Witchery says Samwise was a good cook and took Frodo all the way to the end. He was also a good soul. You know, Rune is also very, like, fidgety and hyperactive. So I can see the argument for a person of small comforts to help him calm down. 2 votes for healer, 2 votes for comfort. We need a tiebreaker. I have my tiebreaker. We'll bring out my Metroid coin. So I guess blue will be the healer, and red will be the comfort. And let's see how we go. Unless we reach a consensus in the next couple of seconds. I have not looked. Placing my hand. Red. Red was comfort, right? Yes, red was comfort. All right. There we go. Okay. Jumpstore, well, not in all caps, but spiritually in all caps, goes T-Monk! And then Zombie Wolf goes T-Monk! Yeah, I don't even know why it was a question. When I saw T-Monk, I was like, I'm sure half the chat's into that. I know, whatever. T-Monk is fine. Okay, so, you're a disciple of Alale, God of Small Comforts. So let me put that in. The name I think had come to agree on was Astralis. By the way, this game is free for no reason I can see. The quality is high enough to charge, but it is free. So if you folks want to play it yourself and own it yourself, I will have a link pinned down below at the end of the stream. You should. Is there anyone in the chat that doesn't like tea? Like, I don't mean like hate it. Just not really your preference. And I'm saying this now. We're not going to badmouth anybody for their tastes. Astralis is a disciple of Alale. Is that how it was pronounced? Lalale. Alale? Yeah. Witchery says, I already downloaded it to Snoop. Witchery, I don't know what Snoop is, but I assume you're referring to the game. Oh, hey, general question, because my chat tends to know nerdy things about open source software. I feel like I'm at a point where I could probably publish that Delve we worked on itch on my account. But the problem is it kind of looks like junk, and I don't like that. I'm picky about aesthetics. So, what is a good, like, publishing layout tool that's kind of open source and maybe not super high barrier to entry? Oh, I thought you were saying you downloaded it to a program to Snoop. Okay. Disciple of Alale, God of Small Comforts. You could be a hot chocolate monk. I mean, it's not a game with a lot of restrictions. Okay. All right, chat. This is why I said this is probably going to take most of the time, because there's a bunch of decisions coming, and I know everyone's going to pick a different thing. So I'm going to keep trying to lean towards consensus. Lean towards us getting along. But we'll see how it goes. See how it goes. I may have to flip more coins. Choose two. This is for you, chat, not me. You're a T-Monk. Nobody disputed that. But choose two that you are comfortably are, and two that you never quite are. So I'm going to read the whole list. In total, we picked 4 things. 2 are definitely us, and 2 not really us. Hopeful, cheerful, open-hearted, patient, Epicurean, which is like food. Creative, optimistic, tender-hearted and soft, warm-hearted and loud. Witcher says, Rory, Affinity has right now has a free 6-month trial for their whole suite. Alts for Photoshop, Publisher, and Illustrator. Well, I've heard that Illustrator is good for that. I'm using it to make zines. That's a good idea. Jumpstore says open-hearted and creative. We got to vote for open-hearted and creative. We'll start with the 2 that you comfortably are. We'll sort of focus on that. So there's some votes there for open-hearted and creative. For those who haven't really built a character before, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and imagine that you're on a little jungle moon somewhere. And you're sipping a tea that you've dried and made yourself. And that in itself is a sort of religious act for you. Okay? It's almost a form of praise. When you think about that character and who they'd have to be for all of that to be true, that scenario to be true, what are the 2 traits you associate to them? Zombie Wolf says maybe tender-hearted and creative would be good with Rune. That's true. Tammy also says creative and open-hearted. I think we're seeing a consensus around that point. I'm inclined to agree because I feel like tea is one of those things where like it really doesn't have a lot of limits. Like I feel like I'm more of a coffee person myself. We've talked about this before, but I like both. And I feel like what I like about tea is that pretty much anything that you want, you can put into tea, right? Like as long as you can dry it and it is soluble in water in some way and, you know, edible, you could put it in tea. I mean, David's tea, I don't know if that's a thing the world over, but David's tea had like teas with popcorn in it and stuff. And, you know, I don't know that it was my favorite thing, but it was impressive that you could do that. You can't really do that with things like coffee, right? The only thing I think is even kind of close to that level of range is probably liquor, but that's a different ball of wax. Okay, creative and open-hearted. Two things we are creative and open-hearted. Jumpstore embodying that open-heartedness with I didn't realize this was Kill Jumpstore Slowly stream. Okay, and now the 2 things that we aren't quite. So again, it's the same list, but I'll read it. But now, again, you're there sipping. It's almost an act of religious nature to sip this tea that you made yourself with your hands in your forest moon of sort of Solarpunk wonder. Ask yourself what 2 things don't really fit with you or that you're not quite are. Maybe it's a thing you want to be, but you just aren't. Nart? Nart. If I was famous enough to make shirts and sell them, I would have a shirt that says Nart. What a great word that I have fumbled upon. Hopeful, cheerful, open-hearted, patient. Well, open-hearted's off the table. Patient, Epicurean, creative is off the table. Optimistic, tender-hearted, and soft. Warm-hearted, and loud. I'm going to drink some water. And I'm going to turn off the air conditioning. Definitely not loud. Probably wishes they were able to speak up more. I do like that idea, Zombie Wolf. That's a good trait. Because I get the impression that Rune is fairly outgoing. GS says, shout out to Uncle Kitty in whatever place he's at. Uncle Kitty always comments on the videos, so he definitely watches them. Yes, indeed. Shout out to Uncle Kitty. He thought the story on Tuesday was quite strange, because it was. Loud. Definitely not loud. Witchery says, Rory, why would you turn off the AC? No. Well, because it has a noise in the background. I don't think everyone can hear it. But if you have good enough headphones, which I'm sure some people watch it this way, or good enough speakers, you can hear it, and it is a bit annoying. I want a good experience for people watching this, he says as he gets distracted. They're like, who cares about the white noise, bud? Stay on topic. Loud, we agree on. Two things we are not. Loud, but wish we were. I think that's a good observation from Zombie. They might not be very openly cheerful and have issues matching Rune's enthusiasm. I like that idea as well. Witchery says, I'd rather be lightly annoyed than have my streamers hot. I'm hot all... No, I'm kidding. It just felt like a setup. I am actually hot all the time. But yeah, the summer's worse. I'm actually just going to copy this. Not very openly cheerful. I like how we're all just describing... I mean, I'm making an assumption here, but we're describing our own relationship to that one extrovert that gets us friends. This probably doesn't describe all of you. But if it describes you to a T, I'm sure. Witcher says I did consider that, but I didn't want to make it weird. Fair enough. And I do appreciate that. Okay. Yeah, it probably wouldn't be accurate for me to describe myself as an extreme introvert, Jumpstore, but I think I'm more introverted than anybody quite realizes. Because... How do I put this? I guess because a part of me is a performer of some sort. You know, I used to do theater and stuff, but like that's sort of playing characters, I guess, and I was okay with that. Yeah, GS says extroverts consider introverts a challenge. They do. But yeah, I think for the most part, I got adopted by a lot of extroverts. Although sometimes I am the bridge for introverted friends. But I meet that basic standard that being around people too long is tiring. Okay. Well, we did pretty good so far. We have a few more things to pick. Yeah, true. Witchery says, well, introvert and extrovert is just how you get your energy, and that is true. For those who don't know, introverts are people who are, whether they like the people or not, whether they're having fun or not, just get run down being around people. And extroverts are people that get energy from being around people. Because I do like people. Like, I joke about not liking people, but like, those are sort of like broad complaints about society not being as empathetic as I would like. In general, I kind of admire people, and I find them interesting. Otherwise, I couldn't be a writer, right? Because for the most part, fascination with your fellow species is what drives you to write. I have too many hobbies. How many hobbies do people have? I have like probably close to 10 hobbies at this point. Okay, anyways. Now we have to choose one joy that comes easily and one joy that you miss. Whatever that means to you. Oh, I like that way of putting it, zombie. And then we tell the table about them. But where there's no table here, it's just us. This would be if you're playing with a table of friends. So, I'm going to read the list. Let's focus on the one joy that comes easily to this character first. Witchery says, it feels like a hate crime to ask me how many hobbies I have. Sobs from beneath the craft pile. Yeah. Okay, how many hobbies did you keep for more than a month? Let's slim the list, because I'm sure that halves it. Okay. Choose one joy that comes easily. Unexpected visit from a friend or loved one. A warm cup of tea. I mean, I think I know what we're going to pick. Jaunty song and hearty dance. Jaunty is such a funny word to me. I don't have any reason why. It just is. Receiving a surprise present. I don't understand how that's a joy that comes easily. Peaceful walk through nature. Giving into a random impulse. Childlike awe and whimsy at the world around. Jumpstore says, I have several niche hobbies that keep my extroverted friends very invested in my quirkiness. Yeah, I either get, like, you're weird or you're really smart, aren't you? And I think the latter is the least true. The former is most of it. I'm just kind of weird. Yeah. Okay, the joy that comes easily is probably going to be a warm cup of tea, right? Yeah, Jumpstore says warm cup of tea. I'm going to give people a chance to dissent or to give a different opinion, though. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on stream, but mainly because I don't tend to cross-pollinate my hobbies, but one of my other major hobbies, although since I've been a little out of money, I haven't been able to do it because it's not a cheap hobby, is modifying Nerf blasters. Which is pretty involved, if you didn't know. It's a very old hobby, though, that actually started in Vancouver. Sort of. One of the main contributors to it was from Vancouver, a fellow named Stefan Moore, back in the late 90s. Ooh, Tammy says peaceful walks. Childlike whimsy could match well with Rune. That's true. You know what? I'm going to put 2 in. Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember Witchery because I know it's not a thing that I expect a lot of crossover. I know I've mentioned that I like cars, which is the more controversial, I think, when you're hanging out with an arty crowd that likes Solarpunk. To be clear, I'm not like super keen on car culture. I just sort of admire the engineering. Anyways, I'm going to break the rules and I'm going to give us 2 because I think I like the idea of a peaceful walk, Tammy, and I like the idea of a cup of tea. I also like the idea of a childlike whimsy, but we can sort of just work that in on a character level. We don't even have to mention it. 2 joys that come easy. Peaceful walks. Warm cup of tea. And then we need one thing that how did they put it? One joy that we miss. One joy that we miss. So I'm going to reread the list. Unexpected visit from a friend or loved one, warm cup of tea, jaunty song and hearty dance. Receiving a surprise present, peaceful walk through nature, giving into a random impulse, childlike awe, whimsy, and world around you. I won't bias the table. Jumpstore says probably wouldn't cope. I think it's cope, unfortunately. The way this displays, it's blocking a word. well with unexpected visitors. I agree, but the actual thing we're trying to figure out is the thing that they miss that they don't, that a joy that doesn't, I guess, come easy to them, but they do miss. So maybe they were a bit abrupt with random visitors, if we go with that one, and now they don't visit anymore and they sort of miss it. It's hard for me to relate to because the idea of somebody just showing up at my door is not a keen one. Witchery says the contrast of the book is not so bad when you open the PDF, but it's terrible on stream. Well, that's interesting. Maybe it's something about how my colors display or something, because it's not great. It's pretty, but I feel like either the text needs to be bigger. Witchery says, oh, I like the singing one. Oh, the jaunty song and heart. Like they miss a jaunty song and hearty dance? Witchery says, oh, maybe they used to be more open to it. You guys make a good case for both. Zombie Wolf says, I feel like they might miss getting surprise presents. You definitely won't be receiving many of those during your travels. We did establish that Rune is the kind of person who makes stuff and gives it to people at random, so that could be how they became friends. See, this is the problem with writing. Most people think the problem with writing is that you're not going to come up with ideas. Like when you talk to amateur writers and people are sort of getting into it new, they're worried they're not going to come up with ideas. The problem isn't even that. Once you sort of relax and get over yourself a bit and get used to writing and get used to thinking about writing and stuff, ideas flood in. You'll be fine. The problem is picking the idea out of a selection of fairly closely matched ideas. You're like, what of these 15 cool ideas actually works here? Yeah, the stream has been YouTubed. Yeah, there is an option to even make this stream worse but in quality to reduce the lag. But I haven't done that yet because I don't like it when it does that chunky pixelation, which is kind of what you're signing up for with it. Jumpstore says, that sounds like a great way to set them up, Rory. Yeah, okay. Okay. Tammy says, I like missing surprise presents. Make the friendship come easier. Certainly. Cool. Watch us all forget this next week. One joy that we miss. Getting surprise presents. And I think we can pull those ideas in that we had. Like we can talk about like part of the reason they don't get surprise presents is they just didn't deal with random guests very well and people just took them to be rude or at least isolated in a way that they didn't want to be. Everyone needs an arc. Okay. Some things you can always do. Okay, so this is not a choice. It's just a description of something about your character. If you want to highlight a couple for your playbook, you can. But some things you can always do. Sigh happily. Know the comfort, food, or tea someone needs. What a cool ability, by the way. That would be so fun. Point out the bright side and joy of any situation. Now, I have to ask, chat. We're pretty deep into this character builder. But can you, chat, be that optimistic? We will see. Say, praise Alale for this small joy. I do like there's like a musicality to that name. My pet peeve in like fantasy and stuff like that is they put together, obscure names so that it sounds otherworldly. That's fine. But they miss that like there is a melody to language and you can't just smash any name together to try and make it work. It sounds terrible. And I feel like Alale and some of these other names respect that melody. Next, Jumpstore says, I'll remember Rory because next week is my birthday. Yay! Happy birthday. Almost. So I'll definitely be looking forward to further adventures of our Team Monk. Is it on the Thursday or is it just next week? Zombie Wolf says, my parents had a special plant. They said encouraged a lot of optimism, no matter the circumstances. Yeah, I know that you can infuse with butter and put that in tea. That's a thing. It's Jamaican or something like that. Jumpstore says, nope, it's on Thursday. You will have to remind me. I will forget, and I will feel terrible about that. But I'm looking forward to that. That's very cool. That's cool. If you end up going out somewhere with friends or something like that, don't feel bad about missing the stream. Obviously, enjoy your birthday. But if you choose to spend it with us, I'd be happy to have it. Have you here for your birthday. Okay, some things you can always do. Get distracted by something beautiful, no matter how small. And ask, how can I lessen your burden? And they get a PEB if they accept your help. Okay. Which tells me that maybe I didn't understand the PEB thing. We'll have to read it. You are there to help any, but a group of regulars and familiar faces in the community have formed. Pick 5 folks. 5 is a lot. So here's what I'm going to say. I think we have Tammy, Jumpstore, Witchery, Zombie Wolf, and GS? Am I forgetting anyone? Because Janera isn't here today. Here's what I'll say. Each of you get to pick 1 for the character. If there's somebody I've forgotten they want to jump in, feel free to make your recommendation. I have to turn my air conditioning back on. There we go. I suppose if you want to, Jumpstore. Okay, so each of you get to pick 1 of these that we know. A passionate vagabond who idles near the local bridge and happily tells anyone their thoughts on anything. A lonely recluse who has made their home in the woods, away from the company of others, and occasionally visits you. Heartbroken teenager who has a new crush every week along with a new heartbreak. A restless book vendor who longs to be in an adventure like they always read about. Caring baker who makes sure that none go hungry and all feel safe in the community. Grumpy gardener who complains about people coming into their garden or taking their flowers. A helpful librarian who's more than happy to help others find the perfect book or solution. A reliable arborist who takes pride in keeping the pathways clear and helping out around town. I think it meant to say it says toe. Imaginative musician who always fills the community with beautiful music. Optimistic florist who can find a flower to brighten anyone's day. Generous beekeeper who lets their honey flow freely and sweetly. Anxious tailor who frets over whether they're doing enough to earn their place in the community. Jumpstore says, I'm seeing a Vincent van Gogh or golf exhibit earlier that afternoon with my friends. It's kind of an exhibit where you get to feel like you're in the painting. Oh, very cool. I saw, yeah, I was thinking that too, Jumpstore. The Restless Book Vendor made me think of our Fox as well. I will probably do more Fox stuff in August, actually, which is a little sooner than usual. But there are 2 kind of summer. Actually, maybe not August, because August is kind of the deadest month for streaming. Maybe September. But there are sort of 2 seasons in that book that could match summer. I saw some Van Gogh paintings in a collection many years ago. I'm talking like 20 years ago I must have been, or something like that, at the Vancouver Art Gallery. It was a collection that was touring the world. It was some rich guy's collection that's been touring for decades or something like that. Anyways, it had like something from everyone. I got to see, it wasn't like a lot of the iconic big stuff, but it was from everyone. And it was really impressive to me how Van Gogh's stuff, Zombie Wolf says, ouch, Rory, my birthday's in August. It's nothing against you. It's just everyone goes on vacation and I get like eight views a video. you really don't appreciate from pictures how much the texture of his sort of heavy-handed tube work really brings out and life into the picture. I also got to see a Dolly painting there. I forget which one, but man, that looked, I can't believe that was oil paint. That looked spray brushed, right? Like, it was very impressive. There was also, I think, a sculpture from Rodin there or something like that. There's a bunch of stuff there. Witcher says, as someone who is constantly online, I can't relate to people having these dead months. Yeah. I don't know. I guess they have the money to go on vacation is what's all that really comes down to. Okay, Jump Store wants the Restless Book Vendor. Witchery likes the Librarian. Tammy likes the Florist. GS likes Lovely Leo. Is there someone named Leo, or are we talking about astrology signs? Okay, Librarian. 5 people we know. Also, if you want to give the Librarian a name, let me know. We may never use it. We may. Who knows? Zombie Wolf says the Recluse. Lonely recluse who has made their home in the woods, away from the company of others. Oh, so Jum Store? I'm just echoing what you said earlier, Jum. Witcher says, I'm having my first holiday in years next year. I didn't even get on a plane until I was like in my 20s and doing work, just because I couldn't afford it. And that was to go to these sort of rinky-dink towns. I did enjoy it, though. I do enjoy travel in strange places and whatever. But I think the only like traditional vacation I ever took was to Hawaii many years ago. And it was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience. Jumpstore says Rory Zombie is the one who said all her friends were online. Yeah, I was referencing the recluse in the woods because you were talking about setting up a cabin, weren't you? Or am I mixing up people earlier in the stream? Maybe I've lost the track of the conversation. It's one of the problems with the delay. Okay. Yeah, Lonely Recluse. Restless Book Vendor. That was the one I was thinking of. And Florist for Tammy. Florist? Reliable arborist? No, optimistic florist. There we are. Okay. No, I did say that. It says zombie. Yeah, a Jump Store rather. Yeah, that's what I was referencing. GS says musician. Ooh. Imaginative musician. Hey GS, what instrument? Do they sing? Play piano? Play an instrument? Play something with stranger? Harmonica? Okay. Harp. Cool. From a harp. Okay. Is there anything else we have to pick here? Oh, yeah. So, I'm going to read this. We don't really have to do this right now because it's for when you're playing with a group of people. But it is a cool idea. So, it's a cool idea for pretty much for any tabletop. I feel like you could even do this in D&D if you were trying to say that you knew the group already at the beginning of a game. So what you do is you ask one person to your left and one person to your right at the table you're playing at What small comforts has my character and yours shared together? What small fear have you alone noticed creeps into my face sometimes? What about you makes me giggle happily every time? And whatever else, what secret have you confided in me and me alone? And it's a way of like building relationships early on between them. And we kind of already did this because we've already decided that the way that Rune got to know Astralis was by a gift. So we already have a connection built with our one other character. But yeah, that thing exists as well for Rune's character block. And then there's a thing about seasonal holidays, which I don't think I need to get into right now, but during each seasonal holiday, you can do sort of things that reflect your pantheon of God. So as an example, help with tea service, learning about new types of tea and how to ease others' burdens. But you pick that when those events happen. So every seasonal holiday, which is a thing that can happen in this game, you pick something. Okay, your character is built. So let me review it with you. I am going to have to shrink its text down to an unreadable state for the stream. I apologize for that. Okay. Tammy says harps make the most angelic music. It is very cool to have an instrument that is basically designed around the concept of arpeggios, I guess would be the term for it, because it's so pretty on the piano, or at least heavily encourages it. You know, obviously you can do chords with plucking multiple strings. Okay, let me read back to you the character that you have made and will be playing in this chat. Astralis. Maybe Astra for short. Disciple of Alale, god of small comforts. A tea monk. Who is creative and open-hearted. Not very loud, but kind of wishes they were. And not very openly cheerful and struggles to match their best friend Rune's enthusiasm. Two joys that come easy are peaceful walks and warm cups of tea. And one joy that they miss is getting surprise presents, which is how they met Rune. 5 people they know are a helpful librarian who is more than happy to help others find the perfect book or solution, a lonely recluse who has made their home in the woods away from the company of others, and occasionally visits you, a restless book vendor who longs to be an adventurer like they always read about, and an optimistic florist who can find a flower to brighten anyone's day. And that's only 4, so who did I miss? Who didn't I pick one for? I think I missed somebody's choice for the 5 people we know. If you don't want to make a choice, by the way, you don't even have to speak up. I'll just move on from it after that. It doesn't need to be 5. So the question for you, chat, before we wrap it up, because we will have to wrap it up soon, keeping in mind that we are going to engage more readily with this next week, I'm going to do the thing I never do, because it never goes well on a performance level. But we are mid-July, which is why I was like, now's the time to try this. We're going to do the same thing 2 weeks in a row. So here's the question I have for you, so we can sort of do a little bit of writing and wrap up. This character is coming out of their house with a little bit of warm tea in their hand, and they see Rune, their good friend, running out towards them with a smile on their face and their hover bike behind them as they jump off it, run up the stairs to your little tree house or however you imagine your house. And they tell you, did you want to go on a really long trip to find some girl I know through the radio? How would how would Astra react to this? Gonna let chat think that over for a minute. And listen to the peaceful music. By the way, this song, I need to make a habit of posting the links to my Spotify playlist so people can find the songs if they want to, but I keep forgetting. And the one that it links to in the comment in my description below is not. I have a bunch of variant ones. The song is called Opposite to Destruction by Hannah Lindgren. By the way, if anyone doesn't know, all of my music comes from Epidemic Sound, which is one of the costs of the stream, unfortunately. But it is the easiest solution to having music, which is basically I pay a monthly fee to be able to use their whole library as if I licensed that music. So I don't need to worry that the problem with, copyright-free music and stuff like that is at some point the person who made it can just decide to copyright it, and then a bunch of streams get struck. So Epidemic Sound is primarily where I get my music from. I'm going to play that song again. Jumstore says, honestly, Astra is probably the kind of person who would jump to help anyone in need. I do like that idea. That's sweet. Zombie Will says, if they have the childlike whimsy, they'd probably be eager to help without putting too much thought into planning ahead of time. That's a good like early tension. It's not too high stakes, but it demonstrates the separation of the characters. Absolutely, I'll help you. And then gets on the back of his bike. And then after driving, further, to take a line from Samwise, further than she had ever gone, she might, at a point, be like, I'm saying she, I just in my head made it a she. But that's your choice, not mine. I forgot to ask the pronouns, which is a part of the character building. What is Astralis' pronouns? She, her works for me. Okay, let me know if anybody wants to go another direction. Okay. Yeah. I don't want to push my laptop much further, so I'm just going to write a little bit of this dialogue and intro. You guys let me know if you think there's something she would definitely say or do. Astralis. Oh, and give me some physical traits. Jumpstore says, I think most of the chat identifies as she, her, so if Astra is an embodiment of the chat, I think that works. You know what? You're right, Jumpstore. I didn't really think about that. Without Uncle Kitty and there's another fellow who comes around occasionally. It is largely she, her. Which is reflective of most of my life. Most of my friends wind up being women. Rune knew exactly what to bring. Astralis. I'm going to ask you a few rapid fire questions, chat. And we're going to do it. First answer is the one I take. First question, short or tall? Second question, color of hair. Third question, shape of face. And fourth question, preferred style of dress. If there's one you feel particularly compelled by, jump on that one, answer it. So I'll do that one more. Short or tall? Color of hair, basically. Shape of face. And kind of clothing. Zombie Wolf says, lol, Rory's very popular with the ladies. I mean, I don't know, maybe when I was younger, but the, I would say for the most part I was just friends. I don't know. That's the way I saw it. Maybe I was friend zoning a bunch of people. I don't know. I think I'm just a person who, for some people, feels a bit safe. I think that's all it really is. All right, we got two answers that came in at the exact same time. So I'm going to go back and forth between them. Witchery likes tall, and Jumpstore likes short. That's a tough call. I feel like I'm going to default to short, but I don't. That's not a good reason to pick it. I mean, in my mind as I write it. You'll have to remind me of this. So I'm going to do this in the fairest way I can. Witchery said tall first, so I'll give that to Witchery. We'll go with tall. And then I'm going to go down and see the next choice I see is slightly unkempt strawberry blonde hair. Cool. Witchery says, I guess we should fight to the death. No, we're living by Solarpunk principles. No coercion. Only consensus. Well, I guess this isn't consensus. Strawberry blonde hair, unkempt strawberry blonde hair. Would curly fit with your conception there, Jumpstore? Because that's what comes to mind for me. No fighting. Zombie Wolf says casual dress. Okay. So tall, unkempt, strawberry blonde hair, and casual dress so far. And I'm going back up the list. Witchery says colorful clothing that's flowy. Let me see what the other options were. Likes to wear sweatshirts that are a bit too big for her, jeans and sneakers. Okay, well, that's different. And Jumpstore says casual dress. Jumpstore says more messy than curly. Fair enough. Okay. Would it be messy enough that some of it is turning into natural dreadlocks, or is that too far? Witchery says Rory saying his core audience duel to the death. No. Well, I mean, if you want to, like, I don't know, I don't know if this is in line with this group, but play like a Magic the Gathering duel to settle this. That's one thing. Okay, I'm going to make a note for myself because I'm going to forget this. Round face. Jumpstore says, way too far, Rory. Astra's not peddling that kind of tea. Okay. So, just like they slept on it and don't always comb it. Okay. Long strawberry blonde. I think the handmade colorful clothing that's flowy is probably something I could do more with. I know that's a bit of an arbitrary way to make a decision in this chat, but what I mean by that is, you know, the nice thing about flowy clothing is it gives me another way to describe momentum in a story without having to simply use words of momentum. can describe how it ripples and the different colors and how they catch light. It's a touch point for me to make scenes out of. So I'm gonna go with colorful, handmade, flowy clothing. Tall. Okay. A tall T-monk on the south end of town. Who lived in a little cottage. Nope, that's too long. Astra, as Rune called her, was always keen to help. Though he knew he would have to underplay the length of the journey. If Astra really thought about it too long, she would slip. She would realize that she might be weeks away from a good cup of tea. Something he doubted. She was eager. A burden, I should say. A burden he doubted she was eager to bear. She realized that she might be weeks away from a good cup of tea, a burden he doubted she was eager to bear. He hopped... What's a name for his hover bike? I mean, this is more on me than anybody else, but I'm curious if anybody has an idea. Something short, monosyllabic, probably, maybe 2 syllables. Playful. I mean, I could do that thing. I don't know if that makes sense here, though, because this is an Earth. I was going to say, you could do that thing where, like, half the original label is still there. So, like, it could be like a... But what would it be? Like an Indian motorcycle? Harley? Old Lee? No, I'm not calling it that. Jumpstore says Frarun, and Zombie Wolf says Straloom. I don't know what either of those mean. Do they have meaning, or are they just fun names you thought of? I feel like it should be like the name you would give a dog. Like Bandit or something. Nothing gets the names given. Just... Oh, Far Run. Oh, I just mixed up the letters. Oh, cool. Names are tough. Well, we have a week to think about it. I'll skip over it now. He hopped on his hoverbike. Witcher says Bandit is clearly a raccoon. He hopped on his hoverbike and roared up the grassy main way in town. Oh, I could, who's the grumpy one? Who's that grumpy lady? Is it down here? Company of the Optimistic Florist to confound. No, that's not it. Grumpy gardener who complains about people coming into their garden or taking their flowers. Okay. What's the grumpy gardener's name? If you got a name for the grumpy gardener, let me know. I see. He hopped on his hoverbike and roared up the grassing. Why do I do that? I do that more than once. What a weird little brain block. Grassy mainway in town. Swiftly sweeping his rumbling ride between the pedestrians. Some found this expression of his own mechanical prowess admirable and cheered on his nimble machinery as it floated by. Others, such as the first name that comes to mind, Giorgio. Others, such as Giorgio, the grumpy rose gardener, would shout curses at the young, unkempt boy. For how his bike's wake shook and bowed his tallest roses. Rune was oblivious. No, not obvious. Oblivious to most. What a weird autocorrect. Rune was oblivious to most of this chatter as the growl of his alcohol engine and low hum of his stabilizers were most all he could hear when he rode. In no time at all, he swept up against a small... What is the name of that? This is a deep cut, but I do have a chat of people who are, well, at least one who is very proud of their ability to store random facts. So now's your moment to shine. What is the name of that process where you wind weeds into a fence? It's still done in places like England and stuff, but it used to be like the main thing you would do. You would take branches and vines and you would weave it into a fence line, basically. It's a natural fence that grows and repairs itself and holds back things and whatever else. It's an art, and I cannot remember the name of it. That's the kind of fence I want your tea lady to have. Zombie Wolf is explaining that they couldn't explain their name without getting censored in the chat. Fair enough. Wattling. Thank you. A small wattle fence. That would be the correct usage of it as an adjective, correct? Feel free to let me know. In no time at all, he swept up against a small wattle fence. That framed a wild garden of herbs and tea plants. Yeah, Zombie Wolf says they always heed my call to action. What would be your bat signal? If I was like, oh my god, it's definitely getting too hot. If I was to like put a sign against the clouds for Zombie Wolf's random facts, what would it be? He swept up against a small wattle fence that framed a wild garden of herbs and tea plants. So tall, and a little more technical and less poetic of a term, but so tall and intertwined that one could barely discern a low thatch roof at the heart of it. Pretty sure that's a run-on sentence, and I'm pretty sure I don't care. Thatched roof, I think actually is the proper use of that. The activation patch. So I know someone in my chat who knows random things. I could barely discern a low thatched roof at the heart of it. This was Astra's home. Root-bound by robust tea plants. And filled inside with drying racks, hung with strange leaves. Oh, I like that one, Tammy. Says, I think the zombie single should be the infinity symbol because she's full of infinite knowledge. That's a good one. This was Astra's home, root-bound by robust tea plants filled inside with drying racks hung with strange leaves. A strange sight for what was common in the town, but a common sight for a tea monk's refuge. With a startling knock, Rune shouted from the door, "Astra! Wake up! Wake up!" Wake up, wake up, wake up! I have the most amazing news you will hear today or any day. I did see it though, Zombie Wolf. Yeah, I did see it. I have the most amazing news you will hear all today or any day. After a pause and then some crashing, the door creaked open. Rune looked up to see the bleary eyes of a soft-featured woman. In a rough-hewn hoodie. Dyed 5 shades of orange. Oh, he was just keeping me on my toes, Zombie Wolf. Jumpstore says he's very good at that. Yeah, but it's always good to check. Sometimes I just plain forgot. The bleary eyes of a soft-featured woman in a rough-hewn hoodie dyed 5 shades of orange. Hello, Rune. She yawned in the noonday light. I was just, putting some tea leaves. Oh, stop it, Astra. Rune chuckled. I know you were still asleep. I just hope your late night means you made a good blend for me to sip. Well, I tell you the most amazing news ever told in this town, or perhaps the entire moon. Astra raised her eyebrows with a slight skepticism. But smiled in a way that betrayed how charming she found Rune's enthusiasm. Okay, she said quietly. Come in and I'll make some tea. Oh, I can't wait for you to boil some water. My mom said I could go. Rune shouted. And you have to come with me. That's okay, right? Please be okay. I couldn't talk her into it any other way. I'll give you all the pebs in existence if you... Astra laughed. Louder than would be typical for her demure nature, and said, "Look at you, yipping like a terrier. Of course I'll go. You're my best friend." Awesome! Shrieked Rune, who immediately forgot about the tea. Then sprinted back towards his hoverbike, attempting a leap over the wattle fence. And landing in the path before it. From behind the bound weeds, the last thing he shouted to Astra was, "I'll be back in 30 minutes to pick you up. I just gotta tell my mom." Astra tried to tell him that she would need more time. But he had already kicked his bike to life. Swept off down the main way of town. There we go. I better pack quick. I wonder how much tea I'll need. Astra muttered to herself as she perused her kingdom of steepable chlorophyll. Jumpstore says, recalling how young these characters are just reminds me of how in Pokemon we're supposed to believe their parents let their 10-year-olds loose in the world completely undersupervised and with dangerous animals everywhere. I mean, it's a kid's fantasy, I guess, is what would be said about that. You know, you want to believe that you have more freedom than you do when you're a kid. I love the theories about how, like, there was a war and there's no parents left and that's why it happened and stuff, as if anything about Pokemon indicates that a great deal of thought was put into its world building. What's the problem with perused? Pursued? No. Okay. Well, let's read back what we have. Obviously, most of it was spent, you know, creating the character, but we'll get back to that next week. There's a couple of things I didn't get into, but maybe I'll just say it all at once. If you're coming to this part of the show, it is because you just want to know what we came up with. And I will say this now, we did come up with a little snippet of it. It's mostly an introduction because we spent most of the time building the chat's character. I already had my character built in a system called Lunar Echoes, which is a hack of the game Wanderhome, but it recasts those mechanics into the world built by the novella A Psalm for the Wild, built by Becky, and I constantly forget her last name, Becky Chambers. It is Solarpunk in nature, and yeah, we mostly built our character, but I'm going to read you what we came up with. Some of it stuff I wrote before stream, and some of it is stuff that we wrote in the stream. So here's what we come up so far, and we will be continuing this next week. Rune was 14 when he recognized the odd magnetic nature of Panga's crust, and how it meant that a pair of contactless stabilizers from the Rune factory could be repurposed into a propulsion of a hover bike. It took another year and one broken arm before Rune could make the whole concept stable enough to ride. He built the old stabilizers onto an ancient combustion and rubber-style bike that his grandfather had gifted him. He didn't like how the rubber tires battered the vines and underbrush of the border wilds, which was what set him on to the idea in the first place of a hover bike. Rather, it was a charming side effect that the reduced friction of hovering made it the fastest means of travel in his whole village. The power consumption of it was high, though, and he could manage well enough for short trips on sunny days, but he had to distill a high-proof vine liquor to run the old combustion engine on longer trips to recharge things. He had heard of reactor cells that may solve the problem, a remnant of the old world, from Eloise, who had yet to find, but he had yet to find any in his local ruins. Eloise was a lady Rune had never met, and yet he sketched his imagination of her face every night for a year. Eloise was from a colony on the far side of the Panga Moon, far from him. And Rune had gotten to know her then through an old two-way radio, which he had prepared. And they talked for months, sharing their love of technology. But this thin thread of connection between them was lost when the village antenna was melted by a lightning strike during the days of storms. Rune, now 18, had convinced his mother that he knew where to find another great antenna. He wanted to take his high-speed bike into the woods and bring it home for the village. In truth, Rune only assumed such an antenna must be out there among the many factory ruins. Instead, Rune had eyes for Eloise. and he needed his mother's permission for the journey. One much longer than he was actually promising to his mom. One that wasn't really about an antenna. She agreed to the journey for the antenna, though, but only if he wouldn't go alone. Now, Rune knew exactly who to bring. Australis, a tall tea monk on the south end of town. Astra, as Rune called her, was always keen to help, though he knew he would have to underplay the length of the journey. If Astra really thought about it too long, he figured she would realize that she might be weeks away from a good cup of tea at times, and that was a burden he doubted she was eager to bear. So he hopped on his hoverbike and roared up the grassy mainway in town, swiftly sweeping his rumbling ride between the pedestrians. Now some found this expression of his own mechanical prowess admirable and cheered on his nimble machinery as it floated by. Others, however, such as Giorgio, the grumpy rose gardener, would shout curses at the young, unkempt boy for how his bike's wake shook and bowed his tallest roses. Rune was oblivious to most, if not all, of this chatter, as the growl of his alcohol engine and the low hum of his stabilizers were most all he could hear when he rode. In no time at all, he swept up against a small wattle fence that framed a wild garden of herbs and tea plants, so tall and intertwined that one could barely discern the low thatched roof at the heart of it. This was Astra's home, root-bound by robust tea plants and filled inside with drying racks hung with the same. A strange sight for what was common in the town, compared to what was common in town, but a common sight for tea monks and their refuges. With a startling knock, Rune shouted from the door, Astra! Astra, wake up! Wake up, wake up, wake up! I have the most amazing news you will hear today or any day. And after a pause and then some crashing, the door creaked open and Rune looked up to see the bleary eyes of a soft-featured woman in a rough-hewn hoodie dyed 5 shades of orange. Hello, Rune? She yawned in the noonday light. I was, just putting some leaves, out. Oh, stop it, Astra, Rune chuckled. I know you were still asleep. I just hope your late night means you made a good blend for me to sip. Well, I tell you the most amazing news ever told in this town, or perhaps the entire moon. Astra raised her eyebrows with slight skepticism, but smiled in a way that portrayed how charming she found Rune's enthusiasm. Okay, she said quietly. Come in and I'll make some tea. Oh, I can't wait for you to boil some water. My mom said I could go, Rune shouted. And you have to come with me. Oh, that's okay, right? Please be okay. I couldn't talk her into it any other way. I'll give you all the pebs in the existence. If you Astra laughed louder than would be typical for her demure nature and said, Look at you, yipping like a terrier. Of course I'll go. You're my best friend. Awesome! Shrieked Rune, who immediately forgot about the tea, then sprinted back towards his hoverbike, failing a leap over the wattle fence and landing in the path before it. From behind the bound weeds, as he got back up, the last thing he shouted was to Astra, and he said, I'll be back in 30 minutes to pick you up, just gotta tell my mom. Astra tried to shout after him that she would need more time, but he had already kicked his bike to life and swept off down the main way of town. She turned around back into her cabin and said to herself, I better pack quick. I wonder how much tea I'll need. Astra began to peruse her kingdom of steepable chlorophyll. And that's as far as we got, but we will go further next week. We won't do it a third week after that, at least in a row, but I may eventually return to it as long as we still feel like there's story to tell. Witchery says, thank you for the stream, Rory, and for the chat, everyone. Well, thank you so much for coming by, Witchery. It's always good to see you. Wow. Here, read you? Read you feels intimate. I don't know why. It just does. Zombie Wolf's fun fact was about Van Gogh. Where is it? Why am I not seeing it? I know it's here. There it is. Vincent van Gogh painted almost 900 paintings and a further 1,100 works on paper within 10 years, which is an average of a new artwork every 36 hours. I have heard rumors that he might have been bipolar, so maybe that's just he was very prolific during his manic episodes. Tammy says, thank you for the awesome stream tonight, Rory and gang. Can't wait to see what we come up with next week. Hope everyone has a good night and a wonderful weekend. Sweet dreams all. Thank you, Tammy. Waitress says you can read me anytime. It's not helping. I only know as a in that way. I only know that as like a thing that drag queens do, but that's insulting each other. Yeah, perhaps Zombie Wolf, perhaps, or he could just have been very unique. All right. Well, I have little else to say other than you don't have to go home. You can't stay here. Get out of my shop.